Anna looked at the clock. She was anxiously waiting for the police to arrive. Over the last 6 years, the sharp chemical bitter scent filled her house, but instead of the sound of police sirens, she heard a loud. She cursed out the window at her neighbor, Jack. "You better stop what you're doing right now. I've the authorities." Usually, Jack would start yelling back, saying he had the wrong formula or apologizing. But this time, it was silent. The kind of silence that creeps you out. She hurried over. Jack's garage frame was twisted, smoke curling out. Jack on the floor, broken, bleeding. Next to him, an open notebook, his handwriting clear. The Babylon working needs verification. Cops called it operator error, but folks who knew Jack, they didn't buy it. They knew it traced back 6 years to Jack's Mojave ritual. The Babylon working, a crazy try to summon a charisma goddess. Once a tall tale, till that quiet afternoon, till whatever he started finally caught up. Cameron's fate changed the moment she met Jack in 1946. After Jack did a solo ritual in the Mojave Desert, he wrote about a vision. He saw a red-haired woman and felt a strong sign that his calling had succeeded. A few days later, Cameron showed up at Jack's estate. When she knocked on his door, Jack was instantly stunned by her red hair, green eyes, and wild energy. He thought she was the incarnation of the Babylonian goddess. Later, he wrote in Liber 49 the Book of Babylon. She came burning like fire. Cameron was curious about Jack's background in rocket science and his passion for mysticism, so they quickly grew close and even took part in later magic rituals. Cameron said she felt drawn into Jack's life, like it was a fated connection, even though she barely knew anything about Thelema at first. Before all this, Cameron was a red-haired ex-Navy servicewoman and out-of-work illustrator. She grew up in a regular family in Beloit, Wisconsin, and as a kid, she already showed a knack for art and a rebellious streak. Her time in the Navy made her see how absurd war was, that pushed her to pull away from mainstream society and dive into mysticism and surreal art. As an illustrator, her work mixed feminism, astrology, and dreamlike imagery. She often painted nude goddesses, stars, and beasts blending together, a symbol of waking up one's inner power. Cameron always believed her husband's death wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate assassination by the FBI. She thought Jack's dual identities, rocket expert and mystic, made him a threat during the Cold War. His work at Jet Propulsion Laboratory involved sensitive tech, and his Babylon working ritual was seen as anti-American subversive activity. She claimed the FBI set off the explosion, either by planting an undercover agent or tampering with chemicals in his lab, all to eliminate this dangerous man. This belief came from two things: her interpretation of Jack's notes, and the FBI's own surveillance records. He'd been labeled an extremist. In interviews and her diary, she repeated over and over, they were scared of the door he opened, the door to freedom.
Come in.
Hey Miller, got you a cup of coffee. What are you looking at?
Parsons case. Jack Parsons. Former rocket engineer. The one who got mixed up with the occult crowd in Pasadena.
Oh, I remember. The so-called magician. Didn't he blow himself up?
Couple years later, yeah, but this file's not really about him. It's who he was running with. Ron Hubbard.
The sci-fi writer?
That's the one. Parsons called him a partner. They were dabbling in ritual experiments, writing some kind of mythical text. Hubbard took 10 grand and a girlfriend, then skipped town.
Sounds like a con man, not a national threat.
Maybe, but after that, he starts lecturing about mind control, mental cleansing, spiritual energy. Same language Parsons use, different audience.
You think it ties back to us?
I think he's building something, and the Bureau should know what it is. before it gets too big.
In June 1952, Ron was in New York when he heard Jack had died in a chemical explosion. He didn't go to the funeral. All he wrote in his diary was, "A brilliant lunatic. His ideas found a better home." Jack was famous for carelessly mixing chemicals in his garage, so the explosion was ruled an accident. But it did accidentally solve a problem for Ron. Jack was no longer around to challenge him. Ron Hubbard's story with Jack Parsons starts back in 1946. Back then, he was a charming ex-Navy officer and sci-fi writer. He stumbled into Jack's bohemian circle in Pasadena. He met Jack through a mutual friend. And right at their first meeting, Jack showed him this one-of-a-kind mixed notebook, half filled with rocket formulas, half covered in magic circle drawings. Jack rambled excitedly about how consciousness energy could fuel changes to reality, just like rocket fuel. Ron immediately saw the potential. If he stripped away the mysticism, this idea could be huge as a mass self-help theory. So he faked a deep interest in Thelema Jack's mystical religion, and helped Jack document the Babylon working rituals. But secretly, he was picking apart the theory's core. He took concepts like focused consciousness, energy direction, and reality feedback, stripped out all the magic stuff, and tried rephrasing them with scientific-sounding terms. Starting that July, Ron borrowed Jack's notebooks constantly, claiming he was organizing experiment data, but really, he was copying down the key ideas. Before he left California that October, he took $1,000 from Jack's bank account, calling it startup cash, and a sort of payment for using the ideas. He was sure Jack, who was gentle by nature, wouldn't push back too hard. Between 1947 and 1948, Ron gave mind improvement talks in Washington State, New York, and other places. He turned Jack's consciousness energy idea into a mind-cleansing method and managed to attract his first followers. By 1948, Jack had had enough. He sued Ron in California, demanding the $1,000 back and that Ron stop using his original ideas. Ron hired a lawyer, who argued they had a verbal partnership agreement. These ideas were a joint effort. In the end, the court said Ron wasn't guilty of infringement. He just had to mention his inspiration source in future books. But when Ron wrote the preface to Dianetics, he only vaguely said he was inspired by several thinkers. He deliberately left Jack's name out. In 1950, Ron published Dianetics, the modern science of mental health. He'd completely transformed Jack's theory into ideas like reactive mind and clearing engrams, no more mysticism, just packaged as a scientific self-help method. The book blew up. It sold 250,000 copies in its first year, and that's when Scientology first started taking shape. Ron knew Jack would be disappointed if he saw the book, but he didn't care. To him, the value of an idea was in making it profitable, not giving credit to the original creator. Today, no one knows the real origins of Scientology's core beliefs. A global religion, with Ron as its self-proclaimed founder and strict hierarchy in place, and Jack Parsons' name has been mostly forgotten. Jack Parsons' life was always spent in that gray area between cutting-edge science and mysticism. He was born into a wealthy, upper-class American family in Los Angeles. His dad was a real estate developer, and his mom came from a rich, well-established family. You could call their background American aristocracy. Living in an elite neighborhood in Pasadena, surrounded by California's new wealthy social circle. As a kid, he was sent to top private schools, where he got introduced to classical literature and science. His family's library was stuffed with books on astronomy and mythology, and that's what sparked his double obsession, rockets and mysticism. His wealth and status meant he never had to worry about money. He could chase wild, unrealistic dreams from building his own rockets to diving into Aleister Crowley's forbidden philosophy. His aristocratic side wasn't just about money though. It gave him the confidence to ignore social rules, seeing himself as a pioneer who broke the norm. He started early rocket experiments in his backyard with a good friend, and even back then, he showed this drive to break the rules. He wanted to push the limits of what was possible in the physical world with rockets, but he also quietly longed to explore the mysteries of the unknown. When he was 21, Jack teamed up with Foreman and Molina to start a 3-person group. Later, they joined Theodor von Karman's rocket research team. Von Karman was a pioneer in aerospace engineering. He founded JPL Jet Propulsion Laboratory and advanced aerodynamics research, laying the groundwork for America's rocket tech and space exploration. During this time, Jack focused on rocket fuel research. Back then, the whole field was stuck on a big problem. Solid fuel would settle and burn unevenly. But Jack found inspiration in something unexpected: ancient chemical texts and records of Byzantine Greek fire. He used that to invent a new composite fuel that burned evenly and didn't settle. That invention still impacts rocket launch technology today. Some even said his magic rituals somehow fixed problems when rocket launches hit snags. It was also around this time that Jack got into Thelema, the mystical religion linked to the OTO group mentioned in FBI files. He was deeply influenced by Crowley's book, The Book of the Law, especially the idea that thought power can change matter. He became convinced that black magic and quantum physics had something in common. Eventually, he took over as head of the OTO's California chapter. He started bringing his mystical ideas into the workplace, and that's what the company said got him fired from Aerojet. By his 30s, Jack had lost access to sensitive tech, but he dived even deeper into mysticism. He started hanging out a lot with Ron Hubbard. They were suspected of working together on a mysticism book, and that's what triggered the FBI to put Jack under unconventional security threat surveillance. It was around this time that he met Marjorie Cameron. Before he turned 40, Jack died in an explosion at his home, but Marjorie was sure it was murder. When you look at everything Jack's past access to core rocket tech, his connections to people, and all the unsolved questions in those FBI files, that accident still feels wrapped in mystery. Historical records and biographical evidence show that Jack Parsons did plan to leave the United States one day before his death in the explosion on June 16th. He and his wife Marjorie Cameron planned to leave for Mexico or Israel on June 18th as their long-term destination, to escape FBI surveillance, revive his rocket career, and start a new life. This isn't a conspiracy theory, but a reliable fact based on Jack's own diaries, letters, and contemporary reports. Here are the details of the plan. The Parsons wanted to move to Israel. Jack had said he hoped to bypass government restrictions there and continue his rocket research, but first go to Mexico as a temporary stop in the short term. They packed their bags and prepared to sell their property to avoid political pressure under McCarthyism and FBI surveillance. And Jack was sure he was being followed. On June 17th, he received an urgent order for movie special effects materials, which included explosives like nitroglycerin. This made him work in his home lab, where the explosion happened, and delayed their trip. On June 20th, 1952, the Los Angeles police quickly closed the case with the explanation illegal mixing of nitroglycerin and sulfur caused a chemical explosion, and the FBI file only added a cold note: target deceased, surveillance terminated. But can this really be the final word? A genius who could draw rocket fuel logic from ancient alchemy and accurately combine conservation of energy with mystical rituals, would he make such a basic mistake as illegally mixing high-risk chemicals? Remember, he solved the problem of solid fuel sedimentation when he was 21. He knew nitroglycerin needed strict temperature control to prevent explosions, and he even recited incantations to ensure precision in daily experiments. How could he make such a fatal mistake in his own garage? What's even more strange is the scene evidence. Witnesses said the direction of the wooden floor's explosion pointed to the bottom of the floor, which completely contradicts the official story of the explosion caused by knocking over a coffee can. And the explosion happened one day before he planned to flee the U.S., and the police had visited his home several times before on the grounds of illegal storage of chemicals. Is this really just a coincidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. When he broke the line between science and mysticism, was the genius swallowed by an accident, or was the accident itself a carefully planned end?